He said I was just pregnant, not sick, and left me on the roadside. I always thought becoming a mother would be the most beautiful chapter of my life. Turns out, it was the beginning of my survival story. The moment my water broke in the front seat of our car, David didn't take my hand. He didn't rush me to the hospital. He opened the door, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "Get out! You're going to make a mess in my car." That was the moment something inside me snapped. But before I get there, let me tell you how it all began. My name is Lisa. I was 9 months pregnant and terrified, but hopeful. This was my first child. I kept thinking, maybe, just maybe, the baby would bring us closer, heal whatever cracks had formed in our marriage. David, my husband, was a white-collar worker, polite to others, charming at family dinners. But at home, he was someone else. He never hit me. But that's not the only way someone can make you feel small. Some bruises don't show on the skin. Since getting pregnant, I stopped lifting heavy things. But David never offered to help. He spent every weekend at his parents' house, for no real reason, just avoiding me. Every morning, I made him breakfast, watched him eat, saw him off with a kiss that barely touched his cheek. Then I'd clean, do laundry, shop, prep dinner. Only at night could I rest, and even then, I blogged. I needed a place to feel seen, to exist outside the walls of our silent home. One night, I made hamburgers for dinner. David came home, tossed his bag and jacket on the couch, and walked past me like I was invisible. He grunted something about taking a bath. No, thank you. No smells good. Just silence. When he came out in pajamas, I handed him a drink, but he looked over my shoulder and asked, "Where's the beer?" "I forgot to buy it," I said. "I'll get some tomorrow." "Seriously?" His voice sharpened. "Go to the store now." I stared at him, stunned. "I'm 9 months pregnant." "If you want it so badly, why don't you? You forgot." "You fix it," he snapped. "Pregnancy's not an excuse," my mother always said. That did it. I grabbed my bag and walked to the convenience store. Outside, I ran into Sarah, my neighbor. She was warm, kind, the type of person who made you feel human again with a single smile. "Lisa? Beer? Your husband couldn't go?" I forced a laugh. He insisted, said I was just pregnant, not sick. Sarah looked at me with this knowing sadness. "Lisa, that's not okay." When I got home, David was sprawled on the couch, hadn't touched the dishes, hadn't asked how I was. He just barked. "What took you so long?" "Hand me the beer." I said nothing. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I was tired of wasting words on someone who never listened. The next day, he acted like nothing happened, like the storm never came. Why the long face? "Don't take it out on me. I want dinner ready when I'm back." And then he was gone, like every morning, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than my belly. That evening, he returned unexpectedly. "You made dinner, right? You told me you wouldn't be eating at home," I said gently. "Well, I changed plans. Did you even think I might come back?" He glanced at the plate I had made just for myself and sneered. "This? You called this dinner?" He told me I was wasting his money, said my cooking was lacking, that I should learn from his mother. Then he did something that made me lose all remaining hope. He walked out, back to his parents' house, slamming the door like I didn't exist. But for the first time in a long time, the silence felt peaceful. I was alone, but I wasn't being insulted, and that, somehow, felt like a gift. The next morning, I got a call. It was his mother, scolding me for not taking care of her precious son, calling me morally abusive. I explained, but it didn't matter. To them, David could do no wrong. I hung up, and I cried, but something in me changed that day. Something settled deep inside my heart like a quiet promise. I decided I'd cook his favorite meal that night. Not because he deserved it, but because I needed to know, for myself, that I tried, that I gave everything I had. So I shopped, cleaned, cooked with more care than I had in months, laid the table like it was a holiday, and I waited. But he never came. I called. No answer. I called again. Still nothing. Then finally, past midnight, he stumbled in, drunk, collapsed on the floor, smelling like a distillery. And when I tried to help, he shoved me away. "Don't touch me with that ugly face. To think you're my wife." He passed out in the hallway. And I quietly ate the dinner I'd made, Every bite felt like swallowing glass. The next morning, he blamed me for not helping him up, for not taking care of him. And with every word, I felt something dissolve inside me. Not rage, not grief, just emptiness. And maybe that's worse. Because once you stop feeling, you start letting go. That night, he suggested a family trip. I was confused, hopeful for a moment, until he added, "My parents want to come too." Of course they did. And when I said it was risky, with my due date approaching, he looked me in the eyes and said, "You're just pregnant. You're not sick." Next week, we packed. And the moment we got in the car, my water broke. He left me on the roadside while I was in labor. The moment the warm liquid pooled at my feet, I knew this was it. The baby was coming. And my husband, the man who was supposed to protect us, looked at me like I'd ruined his weekend. "David," I whispered, "I think my water just broke." He stared, blank, then annoyed. "Seriously? Right now?" "Yes," I said, trying not to panic. "We need to get to the hospital. Now." He fumbled for a towel, looked at the passenger seat with disgust. Then, he opened the door. "What are you doing?" I asked, confused. "Get out," he said flatly. "You're going to ruin the seats." I thought I misheard. I thought maybe he was joking. But then he pulled me out, physically pulled me out of the car like I was trash. I stood there, breathless, holding my belly, trembling. And then he said it. "I can't believe this. We were supposed to be on a family trip." He started the engine. "Just go to the hospital by yourself." And then he drove off. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there, frozen, in shock, on the side of the road, my body trembling from the pain that was now setting in. I dialed for an ambulance, but my hands were shaking. I couldn't even hold the phone straight. Then I heard a voice. "Lisa?" I turned. It was Sarah. She rushed to me, her face pale. "Oh my God, are you okay?" My water broke," I stammered. Without a second thought, she grabbed my hand. "Come on, we're calling a special taxi. You're not going through this alone." She was calm, firm. She was everything David wasn't. And in that moment, Sarah felt more like family than anyone else ever had. At the hospital, she stayed with me, held my hand, talked to the nurses. She even called my parents. When they arrived, they were frantic, but Sarah was composed, protective. She leaned over and whispered something to them. Then they all stepped out of the room together. The contractions came fast, stronger. I screamed into the pillow, gripping the rails of the bed. My phone buzzed from across the room. I asked the nurse who it was. She said, "David." I hesitated, then answered. His voice was panicked. "Help me," he said. "Help you?" I hung up. My parents turned off my phone. They stood by me through the labor, never left my side. And when my baby finally cried for the first time, I broke down. Not just from the pain, but from the overwhelming love, the pure, untainted kind. Something I hadn't felt in years. Hours later, I woke up in a quiet room. The curtains were drawn. The light was soft. My mother sat beside me, gently stroking my hair. My father held my hand. No words, just warmth. "Where's the baby?" I asked. "With the nurses," my mom said. "They're doing a quick check. You'll see her soon." And then I noticed Sarah wasn't there. "She left a little while ago," my mom said. "But she asked us to tell you. She's proud of you." Proud? No one had said that to me in a long time. Not even David. Especially not David. I checked my phone later. Dozens of missed calls. All from him, and his mother, and his father. I stared at the screen, but I felt nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Just done. A friend visited the hospital that afternoon. She hugged me tight, congratulated me. Then she sat down and looked at me with serious eyes. "Lisa, you need to see this." She showed me her phone. A video. Blurred faces. But I recognized the scene. Me, being shoved out of the car. Pregnant. Alone. It had gone viral. A stranger had captured it, posted it anonymously. My friend, who had a massive social media following, reshared it. And the internet exploded. David's face, his voice, his cruelty. All of it was there. His company name was tagged. His full name, too. People were furious. Comments flooded in, calling for his firing, demanding justice, defending me. I stared at the screen, felt my chest rise and fall. It wasn't joy. It wasn't revenge. It was relief. The truth was finally out. My friend leaned in and said, "He brought this on himself." She was right. Sarah came to visit the next day, brought fruit, sat by my bed. "You seem stronger already," she said with a warm smile. "But don't overdo it. Rest is sacred after birth." I nodded, holding back tears. "Thank you," I whispered, "for everything. I don't know where I'd be without you." She laughed softly. "You'd be right here, but maybe just a little more tired." Then her voice changed, softer, but serious. "I told my husband," she said. I blinked. "About everything?" She nodded. He was furious. I froze. Sarah's husband was the CEO of the company David worked for. David had no idea. "I didn't mean to drag you into this," I whispered. "Lisa," she said gently, "you didn't. You endured. Now let someone else carry the weight." And for the first time in a long time, I let go. The CEO's wife was my neighbor, and my husband had no idea. Some people build their own downfall brick by brick. David? He poured the concrete and danced on it. And he had no idea that the woman he insulted in the parking lot, the one who helped his pregnant wife into a taxi, was the wife of his company's CEO. When we first moved into the neighborhood, David didn't care to meet the neighbors, said he was too busy, or worse, what's the point? So he never came with me to community events, never noticed the woman who always smiled at me at the flower shop, never asked who she was when she brought over a casserole after we moved in. That woman was Sarah, and she knew everything. In our tea chats, Sarah never once flaunted her status, never used her husband's title to make herself feel important. She just listened. And after everything David did to me, she kept asking gently, "Do you want me to talk to my husband about this?" And every time, I said no. Because, deep down, I was still trying to protect the man who left me on the side of the road. But that day, the day I gave birth alone, something changed in Sarah. I saw it in her eyes. She was done watching. After visiting me in the hospital, she spoke to her husband, and things started moving fast. David didn't know any of this. He only knew that suddenly, people at work were looking at him differently. Whispers, avoided glances, cold greetings, and then a formal summons from HR. I didn't hear this from David. I heard it from Sarah. She texted me, "He's been reprimanded." My husband believes any man who can't protect his family doesn't belong in leadership. It was simple, clean, just. Back at the hospital, I was recovering well. My baby's little fingers curled around mine like she already knew I needed her strength. My parents were my anchor. They decorated my room, brought flowers, made jokes to ease the heaviness. But the calls never stopped. David, his mother, his father. Even blocked, they found ways to get through. One night, my friend handed me her phone. Another viral post. This time, an update from someone in David's company. Apparently, when confronted by his coworkers, David said, "I had a prior trip planned with my parents." She was being dramatic. I couldn't just cancel everything because of a little water. A little water. Like it wasn't the beginning of our child's life. His comment ignited another fire online. Now his parents were dragged into it. People found their social media, their names, their photos. Suddenly, it wasn't just David who was getting hate. It was all of them. My dad picked up the house phone one evening. It was David's mother. She said, "She married into our family. She has no right to complain." My father's voice thundered through the hallway. "She's not your property. And you? You've lost the right to call yourself a family." They hung up. That night, I saw a side of my dad I hadn't seen before. Not angry, but protective in a way that shook me. And for the first time, I felt safe. We consulted a lawyer, a friend of my father's. He listened. Didn't interrupt. Didn't judge. Just nodded and said, "We'll take it from here." When the lawyer reached out to David, David laughed it off. "It's just marital issues. We don't need lawyers." But the lawyer remained calm. "Lisa is my client. All communication now goes through me. That sentence? It was a turning point. David refused to sign the divorce papers, kept saying he wanted to fix things, kept insisting I come back home. But the moment the word court was mentioned, he cracked. Then came the call request. He wanted to apologize. I agreed, under the lawyer's supervision, and with my parents by my side. He started off arrogant. Apologize now and I'll forgive you. Come home. The house is a mess. I might lose my job. People are judging me. This is your fault. He kept talking, accusing, blaming, begging. Then he mocked me. You can't even reply. Just like always, useless. No wonder no one respects you. And that was it. I took a breath and said, This call is being recorded. Goodbye. I hung up. My lawyer leaned over. This will help. I nodded. Not out of spite, out of closure. After that, things moved fast. The divorce was finalized. Property split. Child support settled. No more arguments. Just signatures. David? He was fired. His housing loan defaulted. He moved back in with his parents. Nobody would hire him. Not after that video. Even his parents stopped posting online. They lived behind closed curtains, afraid of every knock on the door. Sometimes justice doesn't need a courtroom. Sometimes it's a quiet fall that everyone hears. As for me, I got stronger, I got freer, and most of all, I got my daughter. We visited Sarah to thank her, and that's when I met her son. Some people enter your life like a gentle breeze. Sarah? She was the storm that cleared the sky. After the divorce was finalized, after David vanished into the shadows he created, I was free. But freedom, after a long time in chains, feels strange. Like learning how to walk again, like waking up from a dream you didn't know was a nightmare. I moved back in with my parents. They'd turned my old bedroom into a nursery. Soft curtains, fresh paint. The crib nestled by the window, where sunlight pooled every morning. My father carved a wooden mobile by hand. My mother embroidered the baby's name into a blanket. It felt like home. But I hadn't forgotten what made it possible. One Sunday afternoon, we visited Sarah. Not just to say thank you, but because it felt right. She opened the door before we even rang the bell. Lisa! She smiled, reaching out to hold the baby. She's even more beautiful in person. Her husband appeared behind her, tall, kind-eyed, warm. He welcomed us in with a quiet grace. They weren't just hosting us. They were honoring us. Their home smelled like cinnamon and jasmine. There were books stacked on every table. Photos of their family lined the staircase. And at the end of the hall, I saw him. Their son. He looked about my age, maybe a few years older. He stepped forward, gentle and calm, and introduced himself with a nod. Hi, I've heard a lot about you. His voice wasn't loud, but it landed. Solid, clear, safe. We talked over tea. My parents and Sarah's husband shared stories. Sarah and my mother laughed like old friends, and I sat quietly across from him, listening, watching. His eyes were kind but not pitying. He didn't look at me like I was broken. He looked at me like I was whole, like I mattered. Later that evening, he offered to walk us to the car. I almost said no. But something about his presence, something steady, like a river after a storm, made me say yes. As we walked, he asked, Do you like quiet places? I smiled. I've lived in too much noise. He nodded slowly. I think some silences are healing. We didn't exchange numbers. We didn't make promises. But in that moment, something passed between us. Not love. Not yet. But recognition. Two souls who had both been hurt, and who had both chosen light. After that visit, our families grew closer. Dinners turned into game nights. Game nights turned into shared holidays. I found myself laughing more. Not forced laughter. Real. From the belly. The kind I hadn't felt in years. And slowly, without realizing it, I began to look forward to seeing him. Not because I needed someone, but because I wanted to be seen, truly. Honestly, without fear. One day, while holding my daughter in my arms, I looked at her tiny face and whispered, You brought me here. You saved me without even knowing it. She blinked up at me, like she understood. And maybe she did. Because life was starting to feel like mine again. Of course, the calls didn't stop. David tried. His parents tried. Letters, messages, even voicemail rants disguised as apologies. But I didn't answer. Not once. And thanks to the lawyer and Sarah, I didn't have to. One evening, while visiting Sarah again, her son sat beside me on the porch. We didn't talk much, but at one point, he said, "You know, you deserve a life that feels like home." I looked at him, and for the first time, I let someone else's words settle into me, like a seed planted deep, quiet, but ready to bloom. He called me from a payphone, but I'd already moved on. They say when the past comes knocking, you don't have to answer. But sometimes, you let it ring, just to remind yourself that silence is a choice. It had been months since the divorce. The paperwork was done. The noise had faded. The scars were healing. And my daughter? She was growing, laughing, sleeping curled into my side like she never wanted to let go. Neither did I. One morning, as sunlight spilled through the window, I picked up my phone. One missed call, no number, then another, and another. And then, a voicemail. "Lisa, please, it's me. I'm calling from a payphone. They cut my service. I lost the house. The job's gone. Everything's falling apart." He sounded like a ghost, not the man who once belittled me, not the man who threw me out of a car mid-labor. Just a hollow voice. Begging. "I know I messed up," he said. "But can't we start over? For the baby? I swear I'll change this time." I stared at the phone. For a second, I almost felt something. But it wasn't sadness. It was peace. Because I didn't flinch, didn't cry, didn't even think about replying. I turned off the voicemail, walked outside, breathed in the air. My daughter giggled in her stroller, eyes chasing butterflies. And I realized, this is my life now. A life without fear, without eggshells, without pretending. A life that smelled like lavender and baby powder, that sounded like lullabies and soft laughter. A life that belonged to me. David kept calling. He wrote letters, left messages with friends. But I didn't respond. Because I didn't owe him my pain. And I certainly didn't owe him my healing. Sarah and her family remained by my side. Her son would often stop by. Sometimes just to check in. Sometimes to bring snacks for the baby. Other times, he'd stay. We'd talk. About nothing. About everything. And slowly, the space between us didn't feel like space anymore. One evening, as we sat under the garden lights, he reached over, not suddenly, not boldly, just gently, and took my hand. I looked at him, unsure. "I'm not trying to take anyone's place," he said quietly. "I just want to be here, wherever you'll let me." And I smiled. Not because I needed saving, but because I was already safe. Time passed. And one day, as I watched him hold my daughter, making silly faces, singing lullabies off-key, I realized something. He wasn't just showing up for me. He was showing up for her. Every day, without fail, without expectation. Sarah watched from the kitchen window, her eyes soft. My mother stood beside her, nodding slowly. And for the first time in years, the women in my life, the ones who mattered, were smiling for me. Not out of politeness, not out of obligation, but because they knew I made it. We don't always get to choose the storms we walk through, but we can choose who walks beside us when the sky's clear. I never called David back, never replied to his last letter, never even thought of showing my daughter the name of the man who left us behind, because she already had someone better. A man who showed up quietly, consistently, lovingly. A few years later, on a quiet afternoon filled with sun and the scent of orange blossoms, he knelt in the garden, held out a simple ring. No speech, just this, "May I be your home?" I said yes. Not because I needed him, but because I finally knew I wanted him. And that was the moment I stopped surviving and started living.